Hey, this is Passy from Passy's World of ICT, the guy with the white hat. And today we've got another Python lesson for you. Yeah, Python! Python, our fun thing at the moment, and it's on rolling dice. And so let's take a look at what we're going to be doing. So Python rolling dice program. So in this lesson, we're going to make first a one dice program, and then we'll make this game that's a one dice game. It's going to be called Lucky Triple Fives. And then finally, we'll get on to doing a two dice roller at the end of the lesson. Okay, so the one dice roll program, what's going to happen is it's going to ask the person, do you want to roll dice? And they'll say Y for yes. And it turns out they rolled a 6, so we draw a little picture of a 6 here, just using the keyboard characters. It's not really fancy, but it will do. And do you want to roll a dice? Yes, we do. And we rolled a 1, so it's going to show a 1. And they can just keep going and going. As long as they keep saying yes, it'll do another dice roll. And if they don't say yes, it'll just stop, and that will finish. All right, then we get into the Lucky Triple Fives game. And the idea of this is that each time you roll a 5 on the dice, you actually get triple that. You get 5 times 3 is 15. And so what happened here was they actually rolled a 5 first up. Wow, they're really cooking there. They're lucky, lucky, lucky. And so it turns out that that is a score of 15. So they've got 15 at the moment because that triples up to 15 points, and they just roll an ordinary 3. So anything else except a 5 just gives you the score that's on the dice. So we've got a 3 here. So 15 plus 3 takes us up to a total score of 18, and they get 10 rolls altogether, and they're trying to break through and get a score bigger than 55, 5-5, because we love 5s, and that's going to make them win the game, all right? You can use a different number if you want to in yours. And finally, we get to rolling 2 dice. And so then when they roll the dice, it's going to actually have 2 pictures come up of the 2 different dices, and this was that they rolled a 1 and a 3. Okay, so that's it. It's just little dice rolling programs using the random number generator and some Python code. So it's not too bad, this one. Now the learning objectives, we're going to learn on working the following skills. How to use the random number generator to simulate a dice roll. We've already used that in previous programs, so that should not be too demanding. How to structure it into a sequence of subroutines. So we're going to have to use those def subroutines on these programs, and how to set up a program loop so that program processing can be repeated. So you notice they could keep saying yes, and we could keep rolling dice. So that was just done with a little loop that we're going to set up, and we haven't done one of those sort of loops before, but we've done lots of loops, so it should be okay. Of course, we'll be using the agile methodology as usual. We'll be using the def subroutines to isolate processes so that we can work on them separately. We're going to create those little dice picture images just using groups of keyboard characters off the keyboard on the laptop or the computer. And we're going to pass variable values to different subroutines using the def brackets. That is something new, which we have not done before, and something that's very useful. So we have used global variables. This is another way of kind of doing the same thing, but it'll work better in this particular lesson, and then you'll know 2 ways of doing it. So it's good. So remember, we're a bit of a slow talker, so you might want to get on the YouTube Tools cog and change the play speed of this video up to 1.5 or even 1.75 speed, and then it will flow a lot better. So we suggest that you do that. All right, so an important part of this lesson is going to be setting up that loop so that they can keep rolling the dice. So you notice, do you want to roll the dice? And they can type in yes if they want to. They can type in a little y or a big Y, and they still get another roll of the dice. But if they don't type in that, they might type in N for no. Well, then it'll just tell them to press any key to exit, and that will quit and close down the program. So how you do that in the code is we'll be having this loop here. So we've got while do more rolls equals true, exactly equal to true with the double equals. So first we have to set up do more rolls equals true so that it triggers it to start the loop going for the first time. And each time it's going to ask the player if they want to play. And we're going to say, do you want to roll dice? Yes or no. Now, we've got a range of answers they can put in. So we're not going to worry about validation. It has to be exactly the capital letter Y. If they put in big Y or little y, upper or lowercase, if they type yes or even yes, all in uppercase, that's all going to be acceptable, and we'll get the dice roll game to keep going. Otherwise, if they don't type any of those options there, those 5 valid options, so we're actually doing validation again, a very important part that comes into all of our programs, it'll say do more rolls equals false. So if they don't type any of those 5 things, this loop will become false and it'll stop. So there won't be any more dice rolling, and that'll be the end. Then we get them to also end the rolling dice program with that press any key to exit option there at the end. All right, so that's going to be important, how to make this kind of forever loop going, that while they keep saying yes, we can keep going until they say something else. All right, and we're going to use the random number generator. Now, we've done that in previous lessons, so let's just have a look here. Dice roll value equals random randint 1,6. So that's going to randomly make a number between 1 and 6, because when you roll a dice, that's what really happens anyway. You just kind of get this number between 1 and 6, and it just happens randomly. Like you don't, it's very unlikely you'd keep getting 3, 3, 3, 3. It's probably going to change numbers, and you're not going to be able to tell what number's coming up next because it's all random. So this does a good job of doing that. Now, the new thing we're going to learn is how to pass the dice roll value into the next subroutine using the brackets. So see, when we have this def roll dice brackets, most times you leave the brackets empty, and that's what we've been doing in all of our programs so far. But when we go down to call this other subroutine here, we're going to say display dice picture, and we're going to use the brackets. We're going to put brackets dice roll value. So this random number which was generated and is in the variable in memory dice roll value, by putting display dice picture dice roll value, if this was a 5, it's going to, down here, when it has to display it, it's going to pass in that the value is 5. So we'll know what dice roll value is. And we can check whether it's 1, and if it's 1, we'll show the picture for 1. If it's 3, we'll show the picture for 3. And then we'll have to have all of the other 4 possibilities as well. So this is another way of passing a variable along into another subroutine, because otherwise the program will crash and say, oh, I don't know anything about that variable because it will be just private to this one. Instead of using global variables, we're going to do this, where we actually use the brackets on those def subroutines. And so that's a new thing as well. Now, if that's kind of doing your head in what we're doing here, just think of it like this. So let's say you're making some really nice cheese and tomato toasted sandwiches, and so you're going out in the garden to pick the fresh tomatoes, and so you've got tomatoes or tomatoes, whichever country you come from, and then you're passing them or giving them to your friend. You're passing it along and putting it in their hands, and then their little subroutine or job is to wash them off and slice them up. Okay, so one kind of task is passing it along to another type of task, okay, and that's what we're looking at there. Now, then will be, I think, 3 challenge tasks for this lesson. So the first one is we'll show you how to display a 5 and a 1 and a 3 when they come up, just using these keyboard characters, but we're not going to do 2, 4, and 6. So here we've got the exercise that you're going to complete. That's where it finishes here, where it's showing up 1s and 3s and also 5s, but it's not showing up 2s, 4s, and 6s. So your challenge task will be to make some little number character images of 2, 4, and 6 for the dice, and to get that displaying out as well. So for every roll of the dice, we will see the correct picture number. So if you roll a 2, you're going to see a 2. And if you roll a 6, you're going to see a 6 there, okay? So that's your little job. We've done the odd ones, and you guys are going to do the even ones for your challenge task. Now, that shouldn't be too hard, because you should be able to copy and paste our odds code and just turn it into evens fairly easily. Now, task 2 is making that lucky 555s game. So just take the game you've got for 1 dice roll, and we're just going to add something special in that when they roll a lucky 5, it triples up to 15 points. So here they rolled a 4, so they had 4 points. They rolled a 2, so they've now got 4 plus 2 equals 6 points for their total score. But they're trying to get a total score over 55. Above 55. So this is really going to help out. They got a lucky 5, which triples up to 15 points. So when you do 6 plus 15, suddenly they've rocketed up to 21 points, which is really good. All right, so you're going to make that little game, and you might be able to think of other dice rolling games to do as well, where you keep a tally of the total score. So we're going to learn how to keep a total and keep a running total and do that as well and display it. The player's going to get 10 rolls of the dice altogether in this game, and we're going to give them a special winner, winner, winner message if they got more than 5, 5, because it's all about lucky fives, because 5 is actually Passy's lucky number. All right, so challenge task 3, the final task will be the rolling 2 dice. So you've done a 1 dice program, so it shouldn't be too hard to copy and paste and change some things, just so you've got a second dice going in the program as well, and it can tell them you've rolled a 1 and a 3. The thing is, when you want the pictures to show up, that's not going to be hard, but it's going to be quite a volume of work, because when you roll, suddenly roll 2 dice instead of 1. When we rolled 1 dice, there's only 6 possibilities. You get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. When you roll 2 dice, there's 36 possible outcomes. You get a 1 and a 1, a 4 and a 2, a 3 and a 5 and a 6 and a 6. So altogether, there's 36 different possible outcomes. So it really pumps up how many different drawings you're going to have to make and display in the output, okay? So let's go over to the PDF step-by-step instructions and get started with the lesson and get into it and get on with it. Okay, so these are the step-by-step instructions. So it's best to get these in the downloads. The download link is in the video description there, and it's best to have these written instructions because it'll help you do it a lot faster, and you may not even have to watch the videos. So if you're a teacher and you're at a school where the students don't watch YouTube videos, that's fine. Just get these instructions and give them to them, because most kids are happy to follow the instructions, most students, and not to bother watching the video unless they get stuck and they can use a timeline index to go to a section that they need help with. All right, so we've been through there. So yeah, version 1 of our roll 1 dice program will seem like it's not getting much done, but things will happen pretty quickly after that. So we're using the agile methodology. Now we're starting to get into bigger programs now in the course, so we're going to break them up into def subroutines so that we can isolate different processes and work on them separately, and we can also start stacking them together using the agile methodology to build it up bit by bit, testing along the way to make sure everything's working. So this is the first part that we're doing. We're importing the random number generator because we're going to be needing that later on for rolling the dice. And we've just got this definition or a subroutine called main. So def main, print a heading, rolling dice, and we're going to ask the player whether they want to play or not, yes or no. And then these are the responses which are okay. Make sure you use the double equal signs on that. And if everything's a yes, 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 we want to do it, then we're going to roll the dice. And so we'll have this little definition down here, def roll dice, but at the moment it's just going to say print quotes and some shift 8 star signs. Still need to add code for the rolling dice, okay? So we're just going to have this little bit here run. So type that in carefully. Exactly as it is here with the indentations and so on, and this second subroutine here, and then come back here to the video. So get that typed in. That's going to be the first part of the rolling dice program. Okay, now when we run that code, nothing happens. What? Nothing happens when you press the green arrow or run it in your particular interpreter. That could be PyScripter, PyCharm, or MU, or any of the other ones. Now, the reason why is this is a very common mistake students make, that they've put in all the processing code here in 2 different processes, but it's a bit like you've put in your clothes, your dirty clothes, into the washing machine, and you've also done another little subroutine of putting the detergent and fabric softener or whatever in as well. So you've done these 2 little subroutines, but then you've never actually gone and turned the dial or flipped the switch to get the washing machine going, okay? So we put in our 2 subroutines here, but we need to have a down the bottom of our program, underneath where all the subroutines are, we need to tell it which subroutine to do. So you have to have a main brackets, and that'll tell it to go up to the main subroutine and start doing all that. And while it's doing that, one of the steps will be to do the roll dice sub-process, so that'll get that happening as well. So you need to basically just put this main bracket starting in column 1 in your program, then run it, and it will start doing stuff. And the stuff it should do is, do you want to roll the dice? If you say a Y for a yes situation, still need to add the code for that dice roll. If you type in the word yes in capital letters, that's one of the 5, notice there's a theme of 5 going through this lesson. That's one of the 5 valid options, so it is going to do that eventually. Press any key to enter. Now, if they type N or uppercase N or lowercase n or or anything actually that's not one of those 5 things, so something like J or something but like 9, well, then it's just going to exit, okay? It won't be running anything. That's the end of the program. We're not doing any more rolling dice, okay? So that is our first part of the program done, except there's still one other thing we need to do in this version 1. We're going to do a thing called refactoring. Okay, so refactoring is something you'll hear about in computer programming courses. Now, when we have a good look at this code, and hopefully you can see this on the screen, probably not. All right, let's zoom in a bit. The thing is, with the version that we've got at the moment, we've got here that if they're not saying yes, we want to end the program. We want to just say press any key to exit and do a quit. Now, if they have been rolling along, and when we quit, we also want to have this press any key to exit input statement at the end of our program, so that will keep it staying on the screen when we run the exe in normal Python, okay? Because otherwise, if you run the exe from Windows folders, it'll just go boop and disappear too quick and we won't be able to see anything. So I've got 2 lots of code here which are virtually the same. Now, when you refactor, that means you kind of tidy things up and fix them up. It should be pretty obvious. These are the same bits of code, so they should actually be in a little subroutine. And rather than having 2 lots of code, what we should have is that we're just going to have else. If they type anything different to that 5 valid options, we're going to go to the end rolling dice program brackets subroutine def. And also at the end of our program, we're going to have this end rolling dice program def where we write it. Okay, so we do main and then we do the end rolling dice program def. So we're replacing both of those identical bits of code with end rolling dice program. So you've got to get rid of that code where it was and put this in, and then you need to actually write that subroutine def. So we have def end rolling dice program, and that's what it needs to be written as. So, okay, you need to refactor or kind of edit and fix up your program, a bit like when you proofread an essay, I guess, and you fix things up in your English or history essay. That's what we're doing here, okay? So we're seeing that those codes are identical, so we're going to take that code and not have it there. We'll just say this is where we end program processing, go to the end program processing def here as well, and we'll put that code into the end rolling dice program def subroutine. Okay, so reorganize or refactor your program so it looks like this and run it, and you should get the same results as before. All right, so we're on to version 2, which is actually to get the dice rolling. Okay, so we've worked out how to pick whether they want to roll the dice or whether they want to now finish rolling the dice and press an N on the keyboard. Now we get into actually rolling the dice, okay? So this is going to be filling out that def roll dice subroutine with some code. So at the moment it just says print, still need to add the code for this. So we can take out that line that we still need to add the code, and let's start adding code instead. So remove that from your program, and you need to add in dice roll value equals this one to get the random number, and we'll tell them what they've rolled, okay, with a print statement. So you need to take that out, that print statement, replace it with these 2 lines instead. And when you run it, what should happen now is that it says you rolled a 6, you rolled a 4, you rolled a 2, you rolled a 3. Okay, so they keep saying yes, and notice they can say little y, they can say uppercase y, they can put yes in lowercase, they can put yes in uppercase. They are all part of those 5 valid responses that keep the dice rolling game going. Okay, so get rid of that print line, put in these 2 instead, run your program, and you should see these results here. And also we've got a couple little y's there, and they work, and you get a 1 and a 5. So we just kept doing it. So when you test it, yeah, just keep doing rolls of the dice and make sure you get all of the numbers between 1 and 6, because maybe you could mistype your random number generator and maybe it's only doing 1 to 5s and you never get a 6. So you need to actually just keep rolling it, and these didn't come out in this order, obviously. There might have been other things in between, but we did eventually check that we got 6, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 5. Okay, so do enough tests to do that, and we're on to version 3. Now, anytime you want to take a break in our videos, remember the description has this timeline index, and so if you want to stop now, if you need to do something, or that's all you've got time for at this particular moment, you just remember you're up to version 3, and you can come back to the video and look in the timeline index, see where version 3 is, click on the timeline numbers and start up straight away from this point in the video. All right, so at the moment, we just have to keep manually running that program over and over if we want to do more dice rolls. So what we want to do is we don't want to have to go out of the program. We just want to say yes, and we can keep rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling until we decide we're going to stop, okay? So you just take your version 2 code and you have to reorganize it a little bit and do some tabs where we've got that arrow there. So it's very important that you do the tabs. So we've got our previous program, but what we're doing is we're setting this loop controller, which we showed you in the introduction, do more rolls equals true. So we're priming it up here. I'm setting it to true so that the first time through the loop, it'll actually do it. And this is our loop that says while do more while rolls equals true, we're going to do all these bits that are pushed in. So all of that previous code that was asking them, do they want to roll the dice? And we've got our 5 valid responses, else do more rolls equals false. It's going to stop that loop and we're going to end the dice rolling program. All right, so these ones that are kind of in blue squares here, they need to be added in as new lines that line up here with what's in the current def main subroutine. And this one's a newbie as well. But all of the ones you did have, which at the moment would be over in this column, you need to use the tab key or use your spacebar to make 4 spaces, but they all have to sort of move across a bit because they're part of the while loop, and then the while loop, because it's pushed in, is part of the main subroutine. So Python has to have these pushing ins so that it knows what parts belong to what parts in the program, and if you don't get them right, you'll get errors and your program will not run. Okay, so pause the video and make those changes. What should happen now is you can just keep rolling the dice and rolling the dice and rolling the dice. Okay, so that's going really well. We've got our dice roller and it's coming up with all sorts of different numbers. Okay, so now what we've got to do is that bit version 4 where we're going to display a picture of the dice as well. So how we make these pictures is, you can see we've just got a series of prints. So we're going to have def roll dice, and that's where we're getting that stuff from at the moment. And we're going to make a new def here directly underneath it, def display dice picture. And what's going to be happening inside that def is we'll have a print, and then we'll print some just some minus signs across the top and some of these characters here. Now, if you're having trouble finding them, they're usually just above the enter key, okay? So you should be able to find those vertical ones, and we're putting those ones across. And then we're using a capital O here, a capital O there, a capital O there. Just type around and stuff, and you should be able to figure it out. And that will actually print out a 5 for rolling a 5. Now, we're just going to do that one at the moment, okay? And just get that set up. So we're going to have this new def subroutine display dice picture. And what we'll do is, where we've got roll the dice, after we've generated the dice roll, we're going to have this display dice picture. We're going to go to that new subroutine. Now at the moment it's a bit silly, as you'll see. That subroutine is just going to always display a 5 because that's all we've put into it at the moment. But we're using the agile process to build it up gradually. So you need to take your roll dice subroutine, add in a call here, or tell it to now display dice picture, and there's your display dice picture subroutine that's going to do. So when you run the program, we rolled a 6, but it's showing a 5, of course. Do you want to roll a dice? Yes. We see a picture of a 5. We actually did roll a 5 there, so that time it's worked out. But no matter what you actually roll, it's just going to show a 5 at the moment because that's exactly what we've programmed up here. So the next part is to make it show the correct picture. So we've got to get 5 more pictures set up and show the right one for the right number, okay? So we've got to work on that. Now that's going to need some if processing to get that happening. And this is where we do that stuff about passing values, which we spoke about with the tomatoes, and the person out in the garden picking them passes them on to the person in the kitchen washing them. Okay, so that's the sort of thing here. So we need to do let display dice picture. Obviously that needs to know what dice value it's actually needing to display. So how we do that is that the dice roll value is what the random number generator came up. So when we go to that dice roll picture, we need to tell that dice roll picture, hey, you're doing a picture for a 3 because they rolled a 3 here. Or hey, you're doing a picture for a 5 because they rolled a 5 here, okay? So you've got to put usually these brackets on a def subroutine would be empty, but this time we're going to have display dice picture. We're going to put something in the bracket, so we need to put the dice roll value in there, and then we need to tell display dice picture that there's a value that's going to come in, and it's called dice roll value. Okay, so you have to have these two things in brackets, and that should hook them together, and they can share that dice roll value variable between them. So then it can know if the dice roll value is a 1, we're going to print out a 1, and that's how you would do a 1 dice. If the dice roll value happens to be a 3, that's how you print out a 3 and show that. And we've just done the odd numbers, you'll notice 1, 3, and 5, so that if you've got a dice roll of 5, it's going to show a 5. All right, so you need to modify that display dice picture so it's showing 1, 3, and 5. And what will happen then is that, yeah, we've already spoken about that part. What will happen then when you actually run it is that if you get a 1, it's going to show a 1. Now, we haven't done anything for 6s. We've only done the odd numbers, 1, 3, and 5. So a 6 won't show a picture, but if they get a 5, it's going to show a picture of a 5. If they get a 3, it'll show a picture of a 3. So it's only showing 1, 3, and 5 at the moment with that code that we've done. Okay, so back up here, we have the code for doing 1, 3, and 5. And your challenge task is to add in the code to display 2, 4, and 6. All right, so just to finish off that one dice rolling program, you guys need to do that challenge task to display the even numbers, the 2, 4, and the 6. All right, so pause the video and you can work on that, and then you can have all of your dice values displaying. All right, so hopefully that challenge task worked out for you, and now we're under challenge task 2, the lucky triple fives game that we were talking about in the introduction. So the player's going to get 10 rolls of the dice. So they're going to be able to roll it 10 times. So we're going to have a while loop that lets them have 10 repeats of the while loop. And if it gives a 5 for its value, we're going to triple it up to 15. So you have to keep a running totals of the score as well. And so this is the sort of thing you get, that if you get a 2, it's a 2, the score totals 2. If we get a 5, we got the tripling up, 15, and 15 and 2 will bring you up to a total of 17, and away you go and keep going 10 times until, here's our last one, you rolled a 2, and that took their total score up to 61 at the end of the 10 rolls, and that score breaks 55, and you are a winner, yay! All right, so that's the lucky triple fives game. That is challenge task 2, and if you get these downloaded notes, it's going to sort of give you a couple of clues here, because you might have trouble with the global variable for the total score. So the downloaded instructions will give you some clues to help you out a little bit with that challenge. So that's why it's worth getting the downloaded step-by-step instructions. All right, now challenge task 3 is when you're rolling 2 dice, and as we said, there's going to be 36 combinations, and so you'll still have the same old dice rolling program we had for 1 dice, but you'll have sort of dice roll 1 will spit out a value, and dice roll 2 will also take a value, and it happens here we've got 1s on both dices, and then we need to display the dice picture, but we'll need to pass it the 1 value and the 2 value, pass both of them inside the brackets, and then tell them what they rolled and also display the picture. So we've just put in the display picture at the moment. We're not checking if this one's a 1 and if the other one's a 1. Oh, sorry, we are. If the dice roll 1 value is a 1 and dice roll 2 value is a 1, well then it's going to print out 2 1s next to each other, all right? And you're going to need to expand that out. Now that's the problem, really. That's the hardest bit with this display dice picture, because you're going to have to expand it out to display 36 different sets of 2 dice sitting next to each other. So it'll be a big long elif with 36 possible outcomes. So it won't be super hard, right? But it will take you a while to do. All right, so when you do have it done, you know, roll the dice, yes. If you roll a 1 and a 1, you're going to see the 1 and the 1 showing up on your screen. And that is the end of this lesson. It's all about rolling dice, because dice are used in a lot of games, so this could be useful as something that you then add on to make your own dice rolling game, which you may want to do as challenge task number 4, perhaps. So remember, we've got the full Python programming course at PassyWorldOfICT.com. So just Google Passy's World of ICT, then you can go to the website, get on the Python page and scroll down here, and it's going to show you all the lessons to do to learn Python from being a complete beginner to being able to make a program that can roll dice. And our next program is going to be a program to do Hangman, all right? But we'll talk about that soon. So thanks for watching, and give this video a big thumbs up because we know you like it, and also subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the video updates. And that's good because we know then there's more people watching the channel, and so it kind of motivates us to try and smash these videos out every week. Now, speaking of that, the next game is a Hangman game in Python. Now, we've already built that about 80% complete. But the thing is, it's quite complicated. We're going to have to use 2 arrays. So you need to make sure you've done the arrays lesson. We're going to show pictures of the hangman. So you need to have done this one to know how to show pictures of outcomes just using keyboard characters. And then there's also a new thing called substrings. Now, we may not be able to pull this all together in 1 week and have it out next week. I'm pretty sure it's going to take us 2 weeks, and it'll probably be a long video too, like one of those 1 hour 15 or 1 hour 20-minute type videos with all the parts all in there so you can build the whole hangman. But it's going to be great because it's going to pull together all of the things we've done. It's going to use like def subroutines to really modularize the program. We'll be able to build it up gradually by agile, so hopefully you can understand what looks like a really giant complicated program at the end is actually just a series of little building blocks that we put together Lego style to make something fantastic. Okay, so we will see you, and it might be in 2 weeks time, in the next lesson.